So in this video, I'm going to talk about a couple other major PRs, which I had the opportunity to contribute to the Fulcrum project. Okay, so let's get started. So another thing, well, this was an opportunity which was not completely or directly related to Fulcrum closure or web programming, nothing like that. It was related to writing an extension for ASCIIDOC, ASCII doctor basically. So let me show you what that would mean. Uh, okay, let's go back to the book. You see this book, but the source code of this book is actually written in ASCIIDOC rather than Markdown. So yeah, here it should be here. And when this opens, we'll see that this itself is a Fulcrum application, but the entire prose aspect of the developer guide is within this ADOC file, ASCII doctor file, and the source code, all of the source code, which is not all, but the source code for the examples, which is shown in this. Let's go to the top. There is an example there for sure. Yeah, so the source code is actually sourced, forgive the pun there, it is actually sourced or taken up from within the source files in this repository at compile time. So what this would mean is that when we write, all of this prose is written in ASCII doc, and when using ASCII doctor we say publish, and publish this in the form of HTML or PDF or whatever you want. It does so using preprocessors, and basically it's a transpilation pipeline. So it's very interesting. Let me just talk a little bit about it. So yeah, so this is a great alternative to Markdown. It is after using this, I do feel that it is more adept at helping you express ideas in the sense of prose. It gets out of your way very quickly. Uh, However, the most interesting thing about this is that it is originally written in Ruby, the C Ruby version, and then it is made to run in the on the JVM or on Java using JRuby. So, and then it could also be made to run on the front end or Node.js using a Ruby to JavaScript transcompilation pipeline, specifically called Opal. And I can understand that it might get pretty confusing, but well, this is kind of fun. Uh, Yeah, so here is Opal. It is used to transpile the code from Ruby to JavaScript to make ASCIIDoctor.js, and this is effectively what is used to these are all parts and parcels of the transcompilation pipeline. So the reason I'm telling you this is because when this compilation happens, it happens in various stages. Think of compilers: lexing, parsing, code generation, whatever. So just like that, conceptually divide this thing into that stage. Now we have talked a little bit about this. Now I'll go back to the original problem, why we needed to do this. So on this Fulcrum developer guide, let's open the Fulcrum dev 2, or maybe not on GitHub, but just the dev 2 version. So this, notice the URLs. So this is just the vanilla URL, and this is the specific URL which contains Fulcrum 3. So let me see if I can make it work. I click here, I say reload. Hmm. So I think that the problem has been solved in both of these versions. So originally what happened is that uh, the way it was being transcompiled, let me open this guide, let me show you the raw version, because GitHub by default renders ASCIIDOC as well. It might take a while to open. Yeah, so okay, it's not being rendered right now, maybe because it's too big. Okay, but I think it does render the readme just fine, even though it is in ADOC. Yep, it renders this fine, but for big files it does not render correctly. Good to know. Okay, so let's go to the first example. Here is the example. Here you will see that we have not mentioned the source code explicitly, and we have not mentioned the anchor tag, etc. by default. However, later on, uh, the initial, let me go back to Chrome again. So the initial problem was when we selected this, and think of the experience of the reader. A reader is uh, going from top to bottom naturally, uh, but as a bookmark, one selects this section and does by default or by mistake even does a refresh. At that time, if it refreshed, it would land you at the top rather than on this anchor tag itself. So what we needed to do was to connect the anchor tags to the example and then to the source code itself. Now all of this needed to be done in the sense of the transcompilation hook. No, let me put it differently. All of this needed to be done during the transcompilation process as a hook within this process. So uh, now in both of these it works fine because that extension has been used on both of these now. So let me close things we have already discussed, and there's yep. So this has been used in both of the versions of developer guide right now, uh, and it basically facilitates the reader uh, to in a way create bookmarks by a pseudo bookmark for helping you go through the document and without losing track. So if you do this, if you click on one section and then later on if you close your browser or do whatever and then update this and then you reload the session, it should really uh, facilitate the browser to bring you back at the same position. So this was the basic philosophy behind this. Well, I know it's not a uh, very mission critical thing. However, think of the fact that this book is really the only source you will have access to when you're learning Fulcrum, and perhaps this was a great way to take a step towards the reader. This was not my idea, of course. This was the lead developer's idea, and I would also like to point out that this application here is completely a front-end application, and it simulates the server with latency, etc., for running the examples. So you could also do this, and later on I might touch upon another point where I make use of this fact, right? So remember this. Uh, well, so what I had to do is, as I explained earlier, I had to write a hook during the transpilation of ASCII doctor into HTML. The way I did it is here. Here's the extension. I'll show you. So this is the book source code. At that instant, it is pretty much the same. I did not do anything there. The real magic was here on these 2 points, and I'll show you uh, here maybe extensions. See extensions. Yeah, you can write extensions. These are the hooks. These are the locations where you can include your own custom processing code. So I tried out many ways because I needed to understand whether it's a block processor, whether it should be a block macro processor, or inline, whether it should be an inline macro, which would work in the PDF format output as well as the HTML format output. So all of this testing was going simultaneously at the same time. So coming back to the main thing here. Yeah, so this is the entire source code after, no, this is the dev guide. Sorry. Yeah, so this is the source code after all of the research and all of the experimentation. It's very small. Yeah, so because correct things are small. Uh, so yeah, basically it takes in the source code, it takes in this kind of a block. Let me show you the block. It takes in this, oh no, I've mentioned this within the original. Yeah, it, yeah, here within this readme itself I've explained everything. So if you just mention it this way, it's, and if you run the commands like this, it's going to convert this macro and expand it into this form within the within the ASCIIDOC pre-processing stage. So the next stage would receive this rather than this, which would mean if at this stage I had to choose this stage, because at this stage there was it was much before than converting this into HTML or PDF or whatever format. And once I could get this done, it was very easy to get that anchor tag as well as get the PDF and the HTML correct at the same time. So this was applied to all of the examples in the book and in the source code. So yeah, so I ended up writing an extension for ASCIIDOC. This was another fun experience. Yeah, so this was my another one of what I consider to be a major contribution to the at least the dev guide. Now let's come to the last major contrib, and that would be not this, not this, not this, not this, this. So as you can see that this repository has been archived. So what I meant is that what this means basically is that until around end of August, this was the canonical place where Fulcrum 3 was developed. But after some time and relatively recently, the lead developers, they moved everything to the main source code. So this is now archived. But when I jumped onto the project, it was basically at this stage. It was being worked upon in the workshop here, I guess. So the problem was there were some of the, so this is one of the problems which Tony specifically mentioned that I could probably take upon. The first one, the third one, the fourth one, fifth one. Yeah, so let me try to explain the source, the output here. This is the output. It did not really become a PR, but this is what was expected of me. And yeah, so the problem was that during the development of the version 3 of the project, unfortunately, some of the namings, some of the names were repeated in different namespaces. So, which was creating conflicts, which is definitely not a good API design. And also it was creating conflicts when you were trying to understand or even use the library. For example, merge alternate union elements. It was in two different places, not even namespaces. You will see that this is in the same file, but at different locations, 508 and 597. So this was duplicacy, and it could be anywhere in the entire source code. So let's take an example for create element, and this was in three different files: source, fulcrum, DOM server, fulcrum components, fulcrum DOM CLJS. And I had to find a way that I can parse through the entire source code and find the functions which were good candidates for being repeated in different namespaces. Basically parse through the source code, combing through the source code of Fulcrum itself. This was the major task. Yeah, this was challenging because there are a couple of ways I could have done it, but eventually what I chose is using simple grep, and here's the repository for that. Using simple grep, let me walk you a little bit through that code. Not here. This is the actual source code at the time. I moved it within this repository. And then the entire solution contains only one function. So this is what I meant earlier in an earlier video when I said what I normally would do is to create top level named functions, maybe give them a dash here to make them namespace local, to localize them to a namespace. But yeah, but that remove edge was really nice, remove edge and remove entity. So anyways, coming back, once I had the REPL running in the project, I also had the Fulcrum source code within the project in the class path. So because of this, I was able to parse or grep through the entire source code properly. And one of the major constituents of the solution was using this Apache common text similarity, and this comes from basically NLP. It fuzzy matches two words and checks their similarity. The similarity index which I kept was I think 95%, 94%, and it helped me find variations of how should I say, a symbol. So there is defen, there is defen dash, there is less than defen, there is ghost wheel defen something. So all of these are pretty much the same things which are used differently in different namespaces. So when I was designing this solution, I had to experiment a lot, but eventually, and because of the fact that I could have a REPL running and I could make changes here, see the effect here, so this was really fast. I got this done, and the output was given in the format of file name, function name, line, and even the line number. So here was the output. Many of the functions were duplicated actually, unfortunately, but this was before the alpha, before the public launch, so well, I guess it's fine. Yeah, so this was another great experience working on the project. So from next video onwards, I'll talk about the minor things and then the tiny things. Okay, thank you for watching. See you next time.